Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Trent. This is Rams Talk. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, thanks for commenting, thanks for liking. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. It means a lot to me. You can also find me on Twitter at RealLARamsTalk. So let's just get into this week's game against the Denver Broncos at Mile High Stadium. So we all know that the altitude is going to be a factor. It's the forecast calls for snow, so I don't expect this to be an aerial show from Jared Goff. Definitely not one from Case Keenum. So this is going to be what I think is going to turn out to be a ground and pound game on both sides of the ball. Now, before we get into the matchup here, just a little note on the Denver Broncos. The media and the fans are pretty much melting down over the last game that the Broncos played, melting down in a bad way. So Broncos were 2-2 heading into their game with the Jets last Sunday, and they basically laid a massive egg. They didn't come to play. They got smoked in every aspect. The fans are calling for Vance Joseph's job. They're calling for Case Keenum to get replaced by Chad Kelly. Even Chris Harris is calling out Bradley Roby, who, like Marcus Peters, got smoked on 2 touchdowns last week. The only difference between the two is that Bradley Roby didn't show up to practice the next day. He said he was sick, but the team fined him. So Chris Harris has some words about that, calling him out kind of. So if you're a Rams fan and you were freaking out about the Rams defense last week against the Seahawks, let me tell you, we are in a much better place than the Denver Broncos, who, kind of like the New York Giants, are on the precipice of their season just spiraling out of control. So, so moving on to the matchup, the Rams, this is going to be a big test like every week. It's the other team's running attack against the Rams' run defense. And the Denver Broncos running attack is elite. It's not just good, it's elite. They're ranked third in the NFL in terms of total yards on the ground. They rank first in the NFL in terms of yards per carry at 5.6. And let me rewind, they average 137 yards on the ground. That's more than the Seattle Seahawks, who are ranked 8th, and they tore us up. So just imagine what the Broncos plan on doing. Now, they have 2 backs, Phillip, Lindsay, an undrafted rookie out of Colorado. If you follow the Pac-12, you are familiar with him. And they also have their prize rookie, Royce Freeman. Lindsay ranks 11th in the NFL in terms of rushing yards. He's ahead of Saquon Barkley and Alvin Kamara. And, he's not a household name. And Freeman ranks 20th. So you have 2 guys in the top 20 in terms of rushing yards. And Freeman actually is 5th in the NFL in yards after contact. So those 2 guys should get the ball and should get the ball a lot. Now, a reason why the fans are calling for Vance Joseph's head is because his coaching and his scheme. So he basically takes what the defense gives him and doesn't impose their game plan on anyone. And that's why that the Broncos ranked 17th in the league in terms of attempts. So they're 3rd in total yards, but they barely run the ball. So essentially what Vance Joseph has even said is that they line up and they see what the team gives, the opposition gives them, and then they plan accordingly. So they're stacking the box against the Broncos, and so the Broncos pass it. The only problem is their passing attack is not elite. Case Keenum is 30th in the NFL in QBR. He has 5 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, and that's kind of like really where they're taking their offense is the passing route. And if they were smart, they would just try and impose their will. I mean, their offensive line is not terrible. It's ranked 19th by Pro Football Focus, and it's definitely the best offensive line the Rams will face this entire season. In fact, the Aaron Donald matchup with Leary on the offensive line is going to be a good one. In comparison, the Rams' offensive line is ranked number 1, and it hasn't been credited with allowing a sack this entire year through 5 games, which is the second time that's ever happened. So, Whitworth and crew are really, really holding the line, as we all know. Jared Goff got sacked last week. Wasn't attributed to the offensive line, but they're really holding up their end of the bargain. Now, in terms of running the ball, I feel like this is also where the Rams will have a real big advantage because Todd Gurley is, among the tops in NFL, and the Broncos' rush defense is 29th. So Todd Gurley should feast, and this is going to be a snowy game. So I say the Rams really get Todd Gurley going and get him going a lot. Hell, throw Malcolm Brown in there, just let both of them go bananas. The Rams' rushing defense is 18th. So even if you think the Rams' rushing defense isn't great, which it isn't, it's a lot better than Denver's rush defense. So another thing to keep in mind. Now, another thing going into this, the Rams' offense is very prolific in terms of play action. In fact, heading into last week's game against Seattle, they did play action 40% of the time, which was by far the most in the NFL, and they average 11.5 yards per attempt on play action. Now, the Denver Broncos are third worst in the NFL in guarding against play action. So I think that's kind of the Rams' MO. Last year, they did tons of play action. This year, they're continuing that trend, and it's their bread and butter. So I look to see them continue to do that against the Denver Broncos again. So a couple injury news and notes. Cooks and Kupp, they're progressing through the concussion protocol. Seems like they should play. Shouldn't be a problem unless there's any dramatic setbacks. So I expect them to be in there. Brandin Cooks versus Chris Harris should be another good matchup to watch. Chris Harris likes to jam at the line of scrimmage, and Cooks is more of a precise route runner, doesn't like the contact. So Goff is going to have to fit it into some tight windows if he wants to get it to him. But other than that, I really don't think the Broncos have what it takes to get the job done. Havenstein versus Von Miller. Von Miller's been a little bit of a disappointment this year, but he's still top-notch. I think that's going to be a fun thing to watch, is how Havenstein holds the line against Von Miller. But all in all, I think the Rams take this at the end of the day. Not taking it for granted like last week. So that's it. I hope you really like this edition of Rams Talk. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. I even have a fancy new end card, so keep watching after I'm done talking and check it out. So like always, thanks for watching, and go Rams.